It's Typewriter Tuesday. Let's journey into the past to see what writers of old used to use to ply their trade. What kind of mechanical beauty does Al have for us this week?
Well, for this episode, I'm sitting over at my little workbench, which is really just an old desk next to where I do my writing. And we have gone back in our way back machine for this typewriter, 1923. This is 93 years old. And it looks remarkably good for being almost a century old. You can see that it has some very old styling to it. We have not quite gotten into the Art Deco where that begins to take over, but that wasn't really the goal for this typewriter. Its primary purpose was to be portable, and it was made partly in response to a typewriter that Corona was making called a Corona 3. And the Corona 3 is quite collectible, very much loved because it folds. It's very similar to a typewriter made by the Standard Folding Typewriter Company, and the top half folds over. Well, this particular design was meant to get around that problem where you had to fold the carriage up and over so you can then put it into its case. And this is just kind of a remarkable bit of engineering in miniature. Again, their design for these was to meet the need that businesses were putting upon some of their employees, and that was that we want our reports now typewritten and our sales orders typewritten. And for traveling salesmen, you needed something you could put on the train, put it under your seat, have it handy. So everything was meant to be miniaturized and to be easily portable. Let me show you what I mean. One of the first things you may notice, and by the way, that's the key to this, is it's not special because of what it has, it's special because of what it doesn't have. And to see how they were doing their best to make things small is you will notice that there is no platen knob on this side. First time I saw one of these, when I was first starting to collect typewriters, my thought was, uh-oh, that thing's broken off, and I didn't even look close enough on these. Remington did one for one of their portables. It's also the same in Corona, and it's one way to reduce a little bit of weight, but also make more space. Notice the return bar, how tiny it is. It doesn't even reach the ribbon, the ink ribbons for the machine. It's very, very small, very close to the carriage itself. It doesn't pop out. Later, some of these typewriter companies would make them so they stick out but would fold in. Some had them so they would fold over. But this one didn't do that. It tried to stay as simple as possible. So notice it's missing a platen knob on the left side, but it does have one on the right side. And it works like just about every other typewriter. It doesn't have caps on its ribbon covers. It has a little screw, very nice, and this one is missing one, so somebody put a screw in it, which is kind of a shame. I'm just going to keep my eye out for one of those and see if I can get that replaced. Something else it doesn't have. Notice the number of banks. These are the banks. Usually we just call them rows, but the proper name is banks on a typewriter, and this is a 3-bank typewriter. So if you go to episode 4 of Typewriter Tuesday, you'll see a lovely Smith Corona typewriter that you can look at, and it'll have, I believe that one has 4 banks. That's from 1930. And then if you continue to look at some of the archived episodes, I forget which number now, I have a Corona 3, and you'll see the same thing. That's got 3 banks here. Now what that means is to get full use of the keyboard, you have to master something called the figure key. Before I talk about that, notice it does have a cap key, and it lifts the carriage. So it's a carriage lift system. Segmented shifts are where the type basket drops, not around yet. A little too early for that, but notice over here, no shift key. That's one of the things they had to cut out for these. So what we end up with now, and get a nice close look on this, we have a cap key here, but also notice above it you have this little bit of chrome, and that's the lock. On most typewriters you would have another key head up here, another key that you can push down, but it doesn't work that way. If you're just going to hold it for one letter, you just push it down. If you're going to do a series of letters, like you want to capitalize the whole word, you push this down and you lock it in place. So it's very small, save more space doing it that way also. And to release it, you just tap on it. Same thing with the figure key. Figure key raises it. Now notice this is the shift, rises some. This is the figure, rises more. And here's why they do that. The reason has to do with the type slugs. And one reason I'm recording it this way is I want to get as close as I can. Some quick terminology for those of you that might be new to it. This is the type basket, sometimes called a segment. It's called type basket because it has the type bars in it. These are the type bars. These are the type slugs. And if you look closely, you'll see that there are 3 possible combinations on each type slug. So over here we can see that there's a quotation mark, there's a capital A, there is a small a. On most typewriters, 4-bank typewriters, there's only 2 possibilities on every type slug. To make these work, they had to put 3. And so that is why when you get ready to do the figure, and the figure is the little emblems at the top. So on this first one, on the QWERTY row bank, the QWERTY, QWERTY keyboard, the figure will let you type a 1. Over here, it'll let you type a 2. Down here, you get a quotation mark. Here, you get a fraction, 1/2. Here, you get 1/4. So your possibilities are this. You can type a regular A, that'd be lowercase a. You can push the cap down, type a capital A. You can push the figure down and get the quotation mark, and you have that choice for every other key on here. So it's a great economic way of doing things. But you do have to learn how to use a 3-bank system because it feels very different, especially if you are a touch typist, because you don't have as many keys across the bottom here. And so it's easy for the left hand. The right hand, not so much, because you have to remember now, where do I start? Does it go on the J? So JK, and then the rest of my hand won't fit over here. Nothing there. It's because there's just not as many keys. So you do have to adjust. And you'll see a lot of people, even though they're touch typists, doing the hunt and peck method, where they just use one finger at a time because they haven't adjusted to this. Those who adjust to this keyboard love it. So it's just a matter of practice. So as we look at some other things here, this little item right here changes the ribbon direction. It's your ribbon direction selector. And that's important because this typewriter does not have an automatic switch. On later typewriters, you will see that these things will move. And on the ribbon, in the back, there is like a little rivet. It's a little piece of metal. It punches through the ribbon, and when you get to the end, it moves this on these other typewriters, and it will automatically switch the direction for you and start feeding the other way. You can't do that on these because these are all fixed as they are, and you're kind of stuck with that. So when you get to the end, you just have to man up and switch it over yourself. And it's no big deal, really. Now, bichrome down here. Now, some people get confused. They say there's 3 colors there, therefore it's trichrome. No, it's bichrome. The middle one is stencil. So I have a choice of red. I have a choice of stencil. Let's see if I can get my big fingers in here. Hard to do one-handed sometimes. A stencil or the blue. With the stencil, notice the ribbon does not rise. It disengages the ribbon vibrator, the thing that lifts the ribbon up and down. If I move it back over to the dark, the black, sometimes they were blue, then you see that the ribbon rises. So and that's nice and up front, just where you want it. So I like that quite a bit. Everything again is small. The space bar is a little bit small, and so you can tell that this thing's been around a little while. If you look closely at the platen, you'll see that there's little dings in it. You'll see where the typeface, the type slug, has been smacking into the rubber, and this thing is really hard. It's like hitting ceramic. and it's probably been the dirtiest. I probably shouldn't say the dirtiest. I think it's just degrading over nearly a century. But it was one of the most difficult to clean up, though it still all works. So what else do we have on this? As we look around, we have what are normally called now paper fingers. But if we go to the manual that comes with this, so spring device here, and if you look closely, you can see that there is a roller in there that's supposed to hold the paper in place. The book calls them clamps, paper clamps. Usually we call them paper fingers. And they can slide back and forth there, move it back over. You have to be careful with it because as the carriage moves, if you have it inside your margin, I'll show you the margins in a second, it can get caught up on the ribbon vibrator. It tends to grab it or push it away. So you kind of have to watch out for that. Well, while we're talking about margins, we'll just take a little spin around here. We see there's not a great deal. Later, Underwood will put a lever down here to switch the ribbon and to wind the ribbon, but you have to get up to the the Underwood 4-bank system from 1930 or so. Margin settings here. Just push and set them wherever you want. Push them around all you want. The bell. And then also in the back, we have nifty little paper supports that we push up. I'll show you those from the front in a second. So you have two of them to hold the paper, which I think is always nice. Those always seem to work better for me anyway. As was common back in the day, you see all these patents listed on the outside. The latest patent on this one is 1920, down there at the bottom. April, 6 of 1920. Then it also says other patents pending. Want to kind of cover all your bases. Made in the USA. They're very proud about that. Out of New York. So great little typewriter. Just a few of the other little things. You can release the rollers in the back that hold the paper down if your paper gets in crooked, and then you can lock them back in place. It has really everything that typewriters will have for decades to come. And so it's a great little thing. This little device right here, this little lever, you get two choices for line spacing. That's double space and that's single space. Now, again, this is particular model is 1923. The model was first introduced in 1919, and it ran for 10 years to 1929. But even by that time, as they got towards the end of the run, they were making typewriters that had all 4 banks with it, which is much more desirable for typists. But it is a great little typewriter. One other interesting thing, at least to me, is it's the Underwood engineers are not the ones who designed this. A man by the name of Burridge did, Lee S. Burridge, and he did several typewriter inventions going back to 1898. He invented a lot of toys, even invented a office stapler. He was kind of big into those things, anything mechanical. He loved flying. He was the first person to own an airplane in the New York area. That is, a private individual to own an airplane in the New York area. Did quite well for himself. He died young at the age of 54, and that was in 1915, and he left behind about $91,000, which in 1915 is a sizable lump of cash. It's a sizable lump of cash today, but nonetheless, he died quite young. And here's sort of the sad part of that story, is he designed this, did the patents, and World War I broke out, and a lot of things stopped, and so did much typewriter production. At least most of it stopped in World War I, like it did in World War II, where it was almost completely stopped. And so sadly, he died in 1915. Underwood bought the rights to the patent in 1919, so he never got to see his typewriter made. It was designed. He and his brother Frank did create a typewriter company called Sun, and they did an innovative typewriter called the Sun 2. Had a little reservoir of ink in it. Fantastic inventor. Sad that he never got to see this. One of the other unique things about this has to do with the type basket once again. Notice how tight it is and how small. It's probably, of the typewriters I have, the smallest across its diameter. Very, very compact, and you can see how close together these things are. So it's really rather remarkable. And now, almost a century later, 93 years later, you can still type on this. Now, would you want to do long projects on it? Probably not. Writing a letter, certainly you could do that. Would require that you do some adjustment, some practice, but certainly nothing wrong with that. That's half the fun of dealing with these and keeping them around. When I first got this typewriter, of course it was in its case, and these were meant to stay in the bottom portion of the case. The top portion of the case slips off, and you're supposed to leave it in the bottom. Well, this one's not in the bottom, so I know what you're saying. So what's up with you, Al? Well, the reason is the feet on it were very, very bad. And boy, this thing is light. It's less than 10 pounds. The feet that you see here were bad. In fact, they broke off. They're held in metal clips, and if you look closely at these, you see that there is a thicker part and a thinner part. And there's a clip in the bottom of the case that fits over this thick part so it does not come out. And normally you would keep it in that and you would just set it on your desk, or if you want to set it on your lap, you certainly want to have that so that junk doesn't fall out of the bottom onto your clothing. But worse, that these things don't dig into your legs or damage your clothing. This one is one of the originals, and it is really, really stiff. It's some pretty hard rubber. I found these finally, I think on eBay, and these are still somewhat pliable, and so I was able to replace those. Prior to that, I had to make my own, which is what typewriter people do from time to time. And the way I did that is I went down to Home Depot and started searching through all their washers. Took some measurements and stuff and ended up putting a conical washer on top of a regular washer and pushing the screw through it and mounting it. That would be this screw right in here, and mounting it until I was able to get replacements. And that way I could set it down and it wouldn't wobble. So that was my short-term fix. Now, if you look under here, you see a lot of black. You think, what is it? Is that corrosion? No, they used to treat the metal on these. And in fact, I think the later version even has it on type bars and other linkage. And over time, that has begun to flake off a little bit. But not bad, not bad. No real rust. Very light. And let's just face it, high coolage. It's just really cool. And I've been doing some typing on it, and I've enjoyed the process. It's been a lot of fun. So there it is, a typewriter designed by somebody who almost never gets credit for it now, and he died before they actually put it into production. But we appreciate Burridge's ingenuity, and it really changed things, made the Underwood a competitor in the portables with Corona, which was just kind of mopping up things, and put them back in the running, at least on the portable side, the carryable, or as they used to call them, luggables. Can you lug it around, the luggables? Great bit of inventing, very beautiful in its simplicity. It's lacking what will come along pretty soon with the Art Deco adornments, but it's fairly close to that. We're seeing some of the nice curved portions. So all in all, great typewriter. Well, thank you for joining me for this episode of Typewriter Tuesday. I'm Alton Gansky, altongansky.com, and you can see some of the previous Typewriter Tuesdays at altongansky.com. If you go to the typewriter page, you can see some of those, or you can find them on YouTube at youtube.com/altongansky. Well, thanks a bunch, folks. You are the best. Save a typewriter if you can.